Hello and welcome to Your Family Bank. It's great to be with you today. We are going to be talking today, as always, about money and how we raise our kids in family situations. And so, our guest today is Rob. He is an executive coach, he is a speaker. And so, we're excited to have him on the show. Rob, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Blake. It's a topic I don't talk too much about, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we like to get all walks of life, all different backgrounds to see, kind of what shaped you. But before we jump into that, give us a little bit of background about yourself, kind of what you do and how you got here.
Yeah, so I'm an executive coach, author, and speaker. My book, Capitalizing on Chaos, just came out a few weeks ago, and it's a bestseller. So if folks are listening, it's a book about how you can overcome both internal and external chaos, which is at all-time highs right now, to lead yourself better, your family better, and your company better. And so it's something that we really need. And for me, I mean, what led me here was really this moment that in January 2020, my longtime girlfriend and I, we went to Hawaii for her best friend's wedding. And at the time, I was like, on the outside, everything was great. Like, I had a 6-figure, stable engineering job. I was in a relationship with my longtime girlfriend, who's now my wife. Like, everything on the outside looked great. But I was suffering from depression, panic attacks, and suicidal thoughts. And we were walking down this beach and waves are out, sun's out, people are surfing. And we came across this old school Volkswagen camper van. And at the back of that van, there was a box of fruit and it said, take $1 or take a fruit and leave $1. And in that moment, it hit me that the people who lived in that van were the ones who were surfing. They were free to live their lives one wave at a time. And I had one quiet, timid voice in my mind say, Rob, I would love to do that. And then immediately I heard a stern, judgmental voice that said, Rob, I will never let you do that.
Mm.
And that was the moment where I decided that I could not be led by fear and internal chaos any longer. And that started the journey of the inner work, which led to the outer work. And like right now, like, just over, I guess, 5 or 6 years later, like we've moved to Costa Rica. If folks are watching this, my background is real. I've been working as an executive coach. I've coached some of the top Fortune 500 executives, entrepreneurs, Olympic gold medalists. Actually, one of my clients is going into Miss Universe in the fall. And like I've done a TED Talk. It's been seen by over 300,000 people. And I have a best-selling book. And so my life is vastly changed. I feel a lot better. I feel more fulfilled, more joy, more love. And my business has succeeded as well. And so that's part of what this book is about. It's about not only just the journey of, becoming a better leader and impacting the world, but it's also the personal stuff too. Is like you can make your life feel more fulfilled, more joy, and be more successful all at the same time.
Yeah, it's awesome. Glad to hear that story. It's super cool. And then I was going to ask about where you are because I can hear the birds in the background, so it's definitely real. And that's why we want to have you on the show, is those people who've made that difference, had that success. My next question for you is, what's something unique most people would not necessarily know about you? We just want to get to know you a little bit. Something interesting, you've done or competed in, or anything like that.
Well, something unique. I am doing it in a week and a half, actually, is I am going to be lit on fire for art reasons.
Okay.
So the cover of the book is a phoenix on fire rising from the ashes, and the quote that I started the book with was from Jamaican spiritual teacher Muji, and he says, "Step into the fire of self-discovery. The fire will not burn you; it will burn what you are not."
Hmm.
And so I've since January, I actually have been sourcing a stunt school. And so now it's happening. We're going to do it in Seattle on September 15th. Is I'm going to walk through a wall of flames, and I'll be lit on fire. And so that'll be fun.
Oh, that's cool. That is definitely a top unique one,
That's
for
right.
sure.
I'm sure you haven't heard that one before.
No, I actually haven't. I don't think I've ever had a repeat with that question. That's why I love it. People do some cool stuff. So it's awesome. Okay, so let's start with your upbringing. Is there a moment in time when you were growing up that shaped you about money, whether it was good or bad, kind of, something you remember either being taught or seeing your parents argue or something along those lines that kind of started you down, hey, this is how I kind of think about money, or this is what I don't want to do?
Absolutely. Yeah. This is something that folks don't know enough about, is that for for men, intergenerational trauma goes back through your father's line, like obviously your father, grandfather, men all the way back. And for women, it's their mom, their grandmother, all the way back that way. But that lasts 7 generations.
Hmm.
And it's encoded in your DNA. And so, like, my grandparents were in World War II, and like my grandfather, he's Ukrainian. My grandmother was Scottish. They moved to Canada, and they basically built from nothing, like 2 suitcases, and they built their lives. And so part of that was like they were poor, and like, my dad was the first one to go to college in his family, and like he's brilliant, he's smart and whatever, but like he was encoded with the scarcity mindset, and that was encoded into me. And it took me a lot of work, and I still sometimes experience it, although now I know how to manage it because that's what I do. um but it's like it's it was something about like you should be saving, you should never have debt, you shouldn't take loans, you should, like, there are things that you want to buy that are good quality, and there are other things that you can buy that are not, like, you shouldn't bother. um and then it was really just like about being like limiting your risk. And so like entrepreneurship, like, I don't talk to my dad about my business anymore, because he was telling me like, no, 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 you should go get a job that pays you every 2 weeks. That's quote unquote stable. And like I had that job and I wanted to end my life. And so like I think that's that's been part of my journey, as well as like I'm sure almost everybody, is we have a lot of these beliefs about money that come from our parents or grandparents or even before that, that follow us. And that's part of dealing with that internal chaos.
So with that, like, was there ever a sit down moment, like, hey, here's how you should think about money, and like, dinner side conversations, and then like continual like teaching, or was it just you picked that up because you saw their behavior? It was the, hey, I want to buy this. No, you can't have that type thing.
There was a lot of that. Yeah. Like there was a lot of um, and it didn't, like, logically didn't make sense, right? Like both of my parents they both have master's degrees. They both were working great jobs. Like we were not poor by any stretch of the imagination. Like we're, uh, like probably some version of middle class or upper middle class. Um, but it was like sometimes my parents would have arguments about buying things. Um, like my dad was very set in what he thought we could spend on and what we shouldn't spend on. And so there was a lot of that. There wasn't really like a sit down necessarily, but it was like comments and the way he was very kind of all the time. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, that's like a way to develop beliefs is not only just in these crystallizing moments, but repetition is a very strong way of doing that too.
So what was the change? How was the catalyst for change? Because you said scarcity mindset, you switched, the growth mindset. What was that kind of that moment? It maybe if you have specifically around money where you were finally able to just relax and go, okay, no, there's actually a different way. And not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur, so not necessarily that, but just being able to switch off from I have to save everything.
100%. For me, I don't have a specific moment that I remember, but what it was part of that inner work on the chaos that was inside my mind and the parts of me that were scarce, or the parts of me that were telling me to save, and the parts of me that were judgmental, like, hey, you need to stay in this job even though it's killing you, like, stay in this job because it pays you. And I remember in therapy, I literally realized how much fear was keeping me locked in. And it was like I could almost imagine my boss and like another guy I worked with that were, they were like, it was a weird kind of like out of body thing. And it was like, no, they're controlled by fear. They'll never leave this job. And I can't do that anymore. And part of that was this. And like, as you work with your inner self, you start to gain trust. And so that opens up everything, is now that you are the leader of yourself, you can choose to do things. And so, like, since, I don't know, 2020-ish, I've spent, probably a few $100,000 on my healing, on learning about coaching, on growth, on basically on myself and my business. I mean, my business is extra, but like really on myself to develop me into who I am today, versus I never would have done that in, like 2015.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me how you for most guests, one, there was no talk of money in the home, on a formalized basis. I'm assuming there was no educational talk about money in your schooling growing up or even in college. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I took some finance classes at MIT, so I learned stuff like, you should invest in just index funds instead of the managed ones, and like tips like that. Like, my dad talked to me a lot about some of the tax stuff. Like in Canada, there's some tax-free savings accounts, and there's some things like the retirement stuff where you don't get taxed until you pull the money out when you're like 65. And so like that was some stuff that I knew and was optimizing. Um, but yeah, like the general other stuff was not taught.
So maybe speak to kind of general legacy about how you want to be remembered. And then is there a way of like how you would plan on, making sure that your financial success isn't just given to somebody to squander?
For me, legacy, I am building legacy, and I'm building it through the work that I do, even just not even necessarily like the book or the TED talk that have gone out to, hundreds of thousands of people, but also just the one-on-one work that I do. Like, one of my favorite things is when my client, like I had a client last year, and he was taking over this mine permitting job. Like, they had laid off the other people, and then they added a merger and acquisition on top of this. And so the guy was just in the weeds. And we were having a session, and he said to me, he's like, I was like, how are you doing? And he like went on for 10 minutes about like all the problems and all these things. And then he said to me, Rob, because of you, I've never slept better. And I was like, so tell me, like, why? And he's like, you made me realize that I am not the company's problems. I am there to fix them. And so when I go home, I am not wrapped up in that. And for me, like that is one of my favorite things that I hear. And I hear actually better sleep a lot actually from clients. But like I love to hear those things where people feel they can sleep better, they're happier, they get more time with their kids, they feel more fulfilled, they feel more joy, more love. Like the other stuff follows from that. Like if you literally, if you're a happy leader, your team becomes happier. That's an actual research backed thing. And happier teams are 300% more creative. And so if you want to innovate in these times of disruption, it starts with you being happier, then everyone else does. And happier people are more creative, more productive. Your business will be more profitable. Like all of those things ripple out from that.
Yeah, it comes back to the idea of value creation. It is what's most important. You create value in other people's lives, and then other things will fall into place because you are creating value for them. So that's really awesome. That goes in line with what we talk about and teach in our programs. So what would be the ideal legacy for you? You know, we talk long term, like not just one generation, two generations, three generations from now. How do you perpetuate that or plan on perpetuating that beyond just financial resources?
I mean, the finance question, Blake, um, eventually I'll hire you to do that for me because that's your expertise. And I do not, like, I am one of these people, and I teach this to my people, right? Is I have a lot of executives or entrepreneurs. They're these, they kind of are these DIY, I call them DIY people, do it all yourself. And they end up doing a lot of things. They say things like, I have to do it, or if I don't do it, it won't be done right, or I'll just figure it out. And what happens is there's a lot of like, they're doing a lot of things. They're stressed out. They're working really hard. They're burning out. And yet the things that are happening aren't happening well or in a way that's great. And so I do tell people, I'm like, what can you give to experts that are not part of your expertise to allow them to deal with that and help you with that? And so like for me, I haven't thought about my how much money I will have and how to hand it down to my next generation, although my wife and I are somewhat planning on having kids in the next year or two. Like I would be like, oh, I need help, and Blake is my person.
Yeah, it's finding the resources and then talking about the things that are important to you. That really was what it comes down to. So we're just about time to wrap up, but I want to talk about best advice you ever got, whether personally, professionally. What's the or and then what advice you would give to our listeners.
The best advice I've ever got was that you are not what happens to you, and you are not your job. And I think I mean, I used to slip into that. And that was part of the reason why I struggled with my mental health was I was in an organization and I didn't feel like I could succeed. And I felt like I was doing the best work I could, but I couldn't succeed. And therefore, that meant something about Rob as a person. Um, and actually being able to step back a little bit and be like, no, that's not me, that's my job, help me with dealing with the internal chaos. And then now that's when your impact can grow. The best advice I would give to folks is today, I mean, we're at unprecedented levels of chaos. And I'm not making this up. I'm not I have data. And so folks are listening, go to the World Uncertainty Index, and you can see, and this is a metric that tracks the number of times that government documents around the world use the word uncertain or uncertainty. And it is at almost twice the levels of COVID. It has just been a straight line up in the air since the fall of 2024. And it's going to continue that way. It's in our technology, it's in our businesses, it's in our economy, it's in our political systems, it's in everywhere in our lives. And so when you feel that stress or you feel that fear or you feel that uncertainty, your brain goes into fight or flight. And that makes you a poor leader for yourself, for your family, and for your companies. And so if you feel those feelings, just take a deep breath in and just say, I'm human. Because no one expects you to be at your best at all the time. No one expects you to be this bulletproof leader that you know everything and everything's perfect. And too many of us, we go through life where you have to be the rock. You're the one holding up the world. You're the one that needs to keep it together. And just even using that, you can use that for yourself to let out some of that stress. You can also use it with your team. And so literally last week, I was in San Francisco. I was working with a team in a big tech company. And I was like, hey, like you can use this with each other. And so they decided not to use I'm human. They chose the word Cheesecake Factory. And so, I mean, to be honest, for me, it's about what word are you using and how you use it is the best thing. And so I asked them, I was like, what word do you want to use? And so that's great. And so how they're going to use it is if I see that Blake's not at his best, I can say to Blake, Cheesecake Factory, or I'm human, or you're human. And then you'll be able to understand one is it triggers your own self-awareness, but also that allows you to parachute down a bit. And then the other side is if you see me or if I see me and I'm stressed out, I can say to Blake, I'm human. And that allows you to give me not like, hey, Rob, I need another 50 things done by tomorrow. It's like, hey, let's take a moment and then let's work, like we can work on what's important. And so that's my best tip is use it for yourself, use it at work. You can use it with your family. Like I say to my wife, I'm human when I need compassion and love. And so you can use it in all areas. And it works really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're all about practical tips of getting stuff done that'll help us and our family. So I see that, with my kids, they're stressed out about school or about sports or something like that. Hey, it's okay, whatever the phrase is. You're human, you're a kid, it's okay. And that should help them, because kids, I think probably more than anything, especially as they get into high school, they identify themselves with whether it's their sports team or what they do in school or whatever, feel that stress, but you can help relieve that by saying, hey, it's okay. You are still a child. You are a high schooler. You are human. And so I love that. Thank you for that real practical advice. And thank you for being on the show. Really appreciate you taking your time out of your day and sharing that wisdom with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Blake. Yeah, for everyone out there, so Amazon, Barnes and Noble, capitalizing on chaos, buy a copy. And you can follow me on LinkedIn, Rob Kalwarowsky, or my website's robkalwarowsky.com. Blake will put that in the podcast notes because otherwise it'll be hard to to spell my last name.
Yeah, if you notice, I did not even attempt to say the last name. So but we will have it in the show notes. We'll make sure we have those links together so you can find Rob and how he can continue to help give you some guidance around that stuff. So with that, that's all we have time for today. please like and subscribe, and we will catch you guys next time on Your Family Bank Podcast.